Another Pacquiao title shot? Joshua versus Jake Paul? Canelo on the canvas? Don't be surprised. The first 8 months of 2025 have been interesting, to say the least. We had historic moments that set the boxing world on fire. The all-women's card at Madison Square Garden in July, and others that left us lukewarm despite the promise of a spectacle. The Times Square event in May. Manny Pacquiao, 46, returned to the ring in July, only to muster a controversial majority draw in his bid to become the oldest welterweight champion in boxing history. A week later, Xander Zayas became boxing's youngest world champion at 22. The final 4 months of the year will be dominated by Terence Crawford's bid to become a 3-division undisputed champion when he makes the incomprehensible climb of 2 weight classes to 168 pounds to challenge Canelo Alvarez at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas on September 13. But while the boxing world awaits that historic showdown, the sport isn't just going to grind to a halt. As boxing's schedule begins shaking out for the rest of the year, here's a guide through some of the most pressing questions along with answers to questions you may not have even thought of yet. Don't be surprised if Manny Pacquiao challenges welterweight champion Rolly Romero before the end of the year. Pacquiao nearly broke his own record as the oldest welterweight champion when he battled WBC titlist Mario Barrios to a majority draw. If nothing else, it proved to Pacquiao that he still has it at 46 years old. He's made it clear that he wants to fight again before the end of the year. Initially, the idea of a rematch with Barrios sounded intriguing, but the fact of the matter is that Barrios isn't much of a draw. Pacquiao's manager, Sean Gibbons, suggested that the Filipino boxing legend not waste his time with a Barrios rematch and look elsewhere. If making history is what Pacquiao desires, he should look no further than a fight with WBA title holder Rolly Romero, who has a bigger profile than Barrios following his upset win over Ryan Garcia in May. Gibbons is on board with the idea, and it makes the most sense for Pacquiao's next fight. Don't be surprised if Anthony Joshua fights Jake Paul in 2026. There has been a lot of conversation surrounding a potential fight between Joshua, the former unified heavyweight champion, and the ambitious Paul. Joshua has long desired a fight with fellow Englishman Tyson Fury, but it doesn't look like it will happen, with Fury double-dutching in and out of retirement and seemingly more interested in a third fight with Xander Zayas. That leaves Joshua with very few options. A fight with Paul is the lowest risk, highest reward possibility, even though Joshua seems to be at a level above such a matchup. As doors close on possible alternative opponents, the Paul fight inches closer to reality. If it does happen, it won't be this year, because Paul will need to bulk up for a showdown with a heavyweight. Paul will likely take another fight at cruiserweight before the end of the year and begin targeting a Joshua fight in 2026. As for Joshua, he's been loosely tied to Tony Yoka for his first fight following surgery. Following his surprising majority draw with Lamont Roach in March, Davis was expected to sign on for a rematch this summer. There were rumors the fight was signed for this weekend in Las Vegas, but before a formal announcement could be made, plans for the return bout were put on hold when Davis was arrested in Florida on a charge of domestic battery on July 11. Davis is no stranger to legal troubles, and they have often arrived at the most inopportune times. However, Tank came out unscathed this time, as the case against him was dropped. There's still time to make the Roach fight happen, but Davis' interest in boxing has been lukewarm at best, as he has repeatedly teased retirement. He'll likely take the rest of the year off to sort out his life out and weigh his options for an early 2026 return. Don't be surprised if Amanda Serrano fights once more and retires. Serrano has had a brilliant boxing career that finally bore the fruits of her labor over the past few years after she signed with Jake Paul's most valuable promotions. Unfortunately for Serrano, she ended her trilogy with Katie Taylor 0-3 after dropping a definitive decision to the Irish woman as the headliner of July's historic all-women's boxing event at Madison Square Garden in New York. But Serrano, soon to be 37, has had a boxing career spanning 16 years, 51 fights and world championships in 7 weight classes. There truly isn't much else for Serrano to do aside from take her place in the MVP front office as chairwoman of its women's boxing initiative. Serrano recently teased on social media that she will drop back down to 126 pounds, where she is unified champion, for her next fight. She could line up a meeting with WBC title holder Tara Brown, or put the spotlight on a fellow MVP fighter such as junior featherweight champion Ellie Scottney. Either bout could be her swan song from the sport. Take this with a grain of salt, however, as Serrano is a fighter at heart and could fight on for another 2 years. Shields, the undisputed women's heavyweight champion, is running out of challenges and needs something to boost her career. She's almost too good, to the point some people dismiss her greatness and knock her for facing unknown opposition. Both Shields and Paul's teams have said they are open to working together if it makes financial sense, and there may be no better time than now. With most valuable promotions super middleweight Shadeja Green upsetting former Shields rival Savannah Marshall last month, a fight between Shields and Green is the most lucrative option for Shields. ESPN's #1 pound-for-pound woman needs to fight on the biggest stages available to stay front and center in the minds of boxing fans, and a Paul-promoted event would open her up to a new demographic of fans. Egos will be set aside, and money will be made hand over fist. Don't be surprised if Terence Crawford knocks down and beats Canelo Alvarez. All the talk has been about Crawford moving up 2 weight classes to face Canelo and how difficult that will make it for him to hurt the super middleweight champion. But the same thing was said when Crawford fought Errol Spence and steamrolled him in 2023. While Canelo is a much bigger challenge than Spence, there are a few things working in Crawford's favor. Canelo's diminishing punch output is alarming, and while Crawford has never been known as a high-volume puncher, there is certainly a possibility that he lands the cleaner punches on a flat-footed Canelo. As for the idea that Bud doesn't have the power to hurt Canelo, it should be noted that Crawford relies heavily on timing and punch placement to surprise his opponent. All of Crawford's recent finishes have come courtesy of well-placed counters that caught opponents off guard. Canelo might not get hurt against Crawford, but there's a chance that he'll touch the canvas for the first time in his career if he isn't careful.